Welcome back, everyone. This is day 3 hair. I have a satin bonnet on, and this is the hair that I slept on. As you can see, I only did one pin, and that's just at the top. I think I probably should have pinned that curl a little bit tighter. And this is a shorter hair video because everything just sort of went back to where it was from the day before, which is exactly the point of all of this. It's just a little bit smaller and flatter. All right, page 39, number 78. Before removing the dress, take out the pins that secure the skirt to the waist from the center front to the left placket opening, and over the skirt fullness pin a straight strip of material about 3/4 inch wide as at A, figure 29, taking care to keep the fullness adjusted as it was in the beginning. Then over the waist fullness pin a straight strip of material about 2 inches wide as at B, first turning the upper edge under about 1/4 inch for a finish. At the center front and at the placket opening, leave an allowance for finishing the ends of the strip. After pinning these bands, bring the skirt portion back in position as shown in figure 30, merely to make sure that the proper adjustment of the fullness has not been disturbed and that the stay strip provided for the skirt fullness is of the correct length. Next, pin the collar and cuffs in position, overlapping the cuff ends at point 2½ or 3 inches back of the sleeve seam. I always have trouble with the word sleeve, unless the cuff is designed so that its ends just meet. Number 79, finishing the waistline. After removing the dress, finish the waistline as shown in figure 31 by first basting to the waist the turned edge of the strip pinned over the fullness from the center front to the placket. And then turn under the ends of this strip and also turn under the long free edge and fold this over to the wrong side so that it just covers the row of basting that secures the strip to the right side of the waist, thus effecting a wide binding, as at A. Next, replace with basting the pins that hold the skirt to the remainder of the waistline. Then finish the portion of the skirt waistline that is not pinned to the waist, as at B, first turning under the upper edge of the strip and basting it about 1/16 inch below the top. If the skirt is provided with fullness, as shown in figure 19, keep this fullness adjusted as it was in the fitting. Then turn under the lower edge of the facing and baste it in position. Also turn under and baste each end of the facing strip that is at the center front and at the placket opening. In applying this facing strip, make sure that it holds the waistline of the skirt into the exact length of the binding so that the opening will appear as inconspicuous as possible and neither drawn nor parted, for it is ever essential that an opening be carefully made and finished, no matter where it comes on a garment. Complete the finish at the waistline by stitching first across the end of the binding at the center front, then along the upper edge of the binding as at C, and continuing around the entire waistline, stitching 1/16 to 1/8 inch below the turned edge of the skirt as at D and E. This one row of stitching will secure not only the skirt to the waistline, but also the binding to the left front portion of the waist and the upper edge of the facing to the corresponding portion of the skirt. To finish the lower edge of this facing, turn it under and secure it with fine hemming stitches. Number 80. Applying collar with facing. Baste the collar to the neckline of the dress, taking care not to stretch either the collar or the dress and seeing that the end of the collar is at the center of the front finish, whether this be an applied strip or merely a hem. Then place over the joining of the collar to the waist, as at A, figure 32, a true bias strip, 3/4 to 1 inch wide of the collar material, or of some lightweight fabric if the collar material is heavy, and baste this along the neckline. As you baste this bias strip, hold it easy in order to make it just a trifle fuller than the collar. This will prevent it from drawing along the other edge when it is turned back on the wrong side of the waist. After basting, stitch the strip along the collar joining as at B. Then trim the seam edges to 1/8 or a trifling more and press the bias strip or facing back on the waist. Turn under the free edge and baste and hem or stitch this in position as at C, holding the collar out from the dress so that it will not be caught in the stitching and being very careful to make the neckline finish very flat. Finish the ends of the facing by trimming them to within 1/8 inch, turning them under and hemming them down neatly. Finish the upper ends of the front finish that are not secured with the collar as previously directed. Page 43. Number 81. Applying cuffs without facing. If the cuffs are comparatively straight at the lower edge, they may be applied as shown in Figure 33, rather than with a facing. To secure them, first stitch them as they were pinned to the lower edge of the sleeve in the fitting, making a plain seam as at A. Then trim the sleeve seam to within 1/8 of an inch as at B, and also trim away the surplus seam allowance of the cuff underneath the overlapping portion. Next, turn the edge of the cuff under and stitch it flat to the sleeve, as at C, thus making a machine fell. Before applying the second row of stitching, turn the cuff down from the sleeve so that its upper part will not be caught with the stitching. After joining the cuff in this manner, turn and press it back on the sleeve as shown, letting just enough of the cuff extend below the lower edge of the sleeve to prevent the stitching from showing on the right side. Number 82. Finishing the dress. In order to observe the finished appearance of the dress, slip it on the figure, adjust it properly, and tie the sash around the waistline. Do not plan to tack the sash, however, for it may be left free to permit easy laundering. Then turn the hem at the lower edge and afterwards pin the pockets in position, being guided by the suggestions previously given for placing the pocket on the plain apron. Observe the space between the pockets and adjust them to bring out the most pleasing effect. Before removing the dress, mark the points for snap fasteners along the waist fronts and at the waistline from the center front to the placket opening at the side. Complete the dress by securing the hem, stitching the pockets in position and sewing snap fasteners at the points marked for them in the fitting. If you wish, you may add a little bow of black ribbon at the neckline as shown in the illustration of the dress. Number 83. Making bias-bound collar. If you prefer to omit the blanket stitching that is used to decorate the shirt-waist dress, page 44. You may finish the edges of the collar, cuff, and sash with bias binding. The method of applying bias binding so that no stitching will be evident on the right side is illustrated in Figure 34, which shows the binding applied to a collar finished with points rather than with rounded edges at the front. To apply such a finish, use a true bias strip of self material or contrasting material about 1 inch wide. Place the right side of the bias strip to the right side of the collar. Baste and stitch around the collar edge as at A, taking care not to stretch the bias piece. Turn under the free edge of the strip and turn the bias strip over the seam edges, bringing the folded edge of the strip just over the first row of stitching that is made. Baste and secure with fine hemming stitches as at B. If the collar is made of some light material that will show soil more readily than the dress, instead of stitching it to the neckline, you may apply a bias facing to the neckline of the waist, and as shown, bind the neck edge of the collar with a bias strip of self material cut 1/8 to 1/2 inches wide, in the same manner as the narrower bias strip is applied to the outer edge of the collar. A collar finished in this manner may be merely tacked in position and easily removed and freshened. Number 84. Variations of shirt-waist dress. Material with border. Some materials are woven with a narrow border strip extending along one selvage. This strip providing trimming that, if applied with discretion, proves very effective. Such trimming is particularly suitable for the shirtwaist type of dress, as it may be used for neckline, sleeve, and waistline finishes, and as a trimming band to extend the entire length of the dress at the center front. In this event, the skirt should be cut in 3 pieces as the tuck seam skirt previously discussed, the border being cut in one with the right front or applied separately if preferred. To make the proper allowance for finishing the border in mannish plait effect, place the front portion of the skirt pattern so that its center front line is half an inch from the center of the border. Also, in cutting the right front of the waist, follow the same plan. Any of the materials suggested for the style of shirtwaist dress previously discussed may be used with straight strips of contrasting colors substituted for the border, which should be from 1½ to 2 inches wide when finished. Proceed with the general construction of the dress as previously directed. Then prepare to apply the trimming according to the instructions that follow. Number 85. Blind fly closing. The most suitable finish for the center front of the dress is a blind fly closing, by which is meant a lap placed underneath a hem or a plate on a garment to contain buttonholes or other fasteners which are concealed by an outside hem or plate. Such a closing is made as follows. Turn the material that extends beyond the edge of the border of the right front of the waist, usually about 1 inch, over to the wrong side and crease and baste on the edge as at A, figure 35. Then for the fly portion, cut a strip of the dress material or of lightweight muslin, the length of the center front of the waist plus 1 inch and about ½ an inch narrower than the width of the border, plus the edge turned under this. Place the strip in position as shown, folding it lengthwise so that one edge, as at B, is even with the free edge of the portion turned under the border, and the fold, as at C, is about 1/4 inch from the outside edge of the border. The wider portion of the strip, as shown, will extend under the fold made at the inside edge of the border so that this may be finished in a mannish plait effect. Next, baste the fly portion to the edge turned under the border, basting through 3 thicknesses in all and not through the border. Then stitch on the basted line as at A, figure 36, first folding back the fly portion and the edge turned under the border in order not to stitch through the border. Then with the fly portion folded back so that you will not catch it in stitching the outside of the front plate, stitch 1/4 inch from the outside edge as at B. Also stitch the inside of the plate in a 1/4 inch tuck, the inside of which is shown at C and the outside at D. This stitching should hold the raw edge of the fly portion inside of the tuck. To finish the left front, baste and stitch a plain hem in position as shown at E. The next time we will pick up on page 46, number 86, and I am completely convinced I need to get some cotton and I need to try sewing a dress simply from these instructions.